Really, the only thing I look for, and maybe it's been said before because it's not that complicated, is a good work ethic and an open mind to learning. Muserk works in a very complicated business. Nobody comes out of school and has an understanding of how the music rights program works. So we know when we're hiring people that we're going to have a very hard time if we look for only experts in our field. It'd be a very limited pool, and that'd be a detriment to us. So we look for people, of course, their personalities and really their willingness. Like we always say that people who work in our business and in our team are really people who like to solve those puzzles.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Everybody wants an amazing team, right? They want people that are engaged and empowered. They want people to have a sense of meaning inside the work and fulfillment. Well, today we look at how to create an amazing team. We go through some of the things around hiring, and we also look at some of the other aspects after the hiring process. Our special guest today is Paul Goldman. He is the founder of Muserk, and Muserk grew really fast. Number 4 on the Inc. list of media companies, and that's in 2001. But really is a real powerful company and a conversation that we have about how to create an amazing team. We look at the hiring process. We look at kind of what he sees as the most important aspects of hiring. It's probably not what you think. We also look at what culture means inside of these kind of companies that are, an amazing team. We look at transparency, where he draws the line, why transparency is such an important piece. We look at the one thing you can do that's absolutely free that creates a better culture than you have today, and all that unpacked in today's episode. My job is to help you become a more powerful, effective leader, to help you create a sense of ownership across your team. I do this as an executive coach. And if you're thinking to yourself, what's missing? What do I need to really focus on? Or there's something really troubling you in your way, I want to offer you a free coaching session where we chat and jam about what's going on inside your company, what's really going on to help you be the leader that you want to be, the one that your team deserves. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. Now, let me share with you, I'm not going to pitch you anything or sell you anything, but I want to give to you some insight and some wisdom around this, help you identify what's getting in your way. Maybe it's a blind spot, maybe it's something else, but we want to make sure that you have that conversation with me. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. Now, here's the interview with Paul. Paul, how are you?
Good, Gene, thanks.
Excited to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I've already let our audience know about you and your leadership principles and the things that you really drive you and the success of the company. But tell us about the company, Muserk.
Muserk's a technology-driven global rights administration platform for music and video. So we're really focused on having a technology-driven solution to solve the problem of finding royalties for music and video content on these new, well, not some of them aren't so new anymore, but platforms like YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, and the new platforms like TikTok. So essentially, we collect royalties on behalf of our creators who own the content, whether it's music or video, and then deal with all that money compliance, whether it's the technology of finding fractional pennies and things like that. So you can imagine what a tech play it is. We manage over 7 million works, so one of the largest copyright management catalogs as far as the amount of works we manage. And we were on the Inc. 5000 list as the 4th fastest growing media company this year with a nice growth rate of 636%.
Well, I'm kind of curious. We've all seen, or maybe whoever's not living under a rock, TikTok come on board and really kind of make an impact to Facebook's growth. A big part of TikTok is the usage of music. Are you guys involved with that and making money for artists and making sure everyone's getting paid?
Yeah, 100%. Actually, TikTok is really is a huge platform. I'm not 100% on the stat, but I think it's the number 1 music-driven consumer platform. So what we would do on TikTok is for the people we represent their copyrights from all over the world, we go to TikTok, collect their royalties, get their money, make sure it's correct, by the way. That's a big part of our job. These platforms are not our enemies, they're our partners, but we're also there to do compliance. So if they give us $1, make sure they really owe us $1 on behalf of our customers, and then get that money to them. And there's a lot of compliances that happen, you can imagine, on a global scale. So this is kind of where we sit in the ecosystem. We're kind of in that pipeline of how the money flows to the artists on the royalty side of things.
Now, we've done some research on the company and talking to you. You've got about 13 employees, give or take, but you feel like you're growing really fast for a low number of employees. Why do you think that's possible?
It's a good question. I get that a lot, especially from investors and people who are talking about the future. Again, like we manage over 7.5 million works. So I always lead with that. And people know our industry know that regardless how much money those works make, we have to manage those. With 13 people, they say, how do you do that? And we do that, one, through an amazing core team, how we hire our team, but really through technology as well. We have a proprietary platform called Blue Matter that is truly scalable because we use it to scale our own business, right? We're doing the work of maybe 50 people. Some of our competitors have over 100 people. And we use technology with incredibly smart humans managing that technology. That's the key. Technology doesn't run on their own. So we call it kind of a human in the loop approach, where of course our platform isn't AI machine learning. Maybe it's for a tech podcast, but that's the core of what we do. But the human in the loop is how we kind of say it, where it does take humans to kind of not just hit the on button, but make adjustments, fix errors, improve it, come up with insights to build better ways to use it. So we really think of our company, of course, it's tech driven, but without the people, and it's not just generic saying, it's really true. Without the right team, it would not be able to do that. We really have this magic kind of puzzle we put together that we're kind of all Muserk's just riding right now, which we feel great about.
So Paul, let's unpack that a little bit. You talked about creating an amazing team. What do you think the core principles are for an amazing team?
It's funny. So I get asked that a lot, like, how do you hire, things like that. Okay, of course, take all the basics out, like they need whatever background they need in the industry. But really the only thing I look for, and maybe it's been said before because it's not that complicated, is a good work ethic and an open mind to learning. Muserk works in a very complicated business. Nobody comes out of school and has an understanding of how the music rights program works. So we know when we're hiring people that we're going to have a very hard time if we look for only experts in our field. There'd be a very limited pool, and that'd be a detriment to us. So we look for people, of course, their personalities and really their willingness. Like we always say that people who work in our business and in our team are really people who like to solve those puzzles. When you go to like a rental apartment or a ski resort or something, and there's always that thing on the table that's that rope with the rings and the ball, and people try to figure out how to get the ring out of the rope.
Yeah.
There's always one or two people who stay up a little late thinking they can figure it out. Like that's the type of mindset, because our business is like unsolving these puzzles. So it is a certain type of person who likes, puzzles. Some people like crosswords, some people don't. It's fine either way. So I look for those types of like almost human characteristics in people, knowing that anyone could learn, really. Anyone could learn anything if they're willing, if they have a good teacher and they're willing to put in the work. It's not always the same straight road, but anyone could get there. So, it is a part of it, but it's a smaller part than people think.
What do you feel like is different inside your hiring process that allows you to find those people that have that mindset of solving puzzles?
Well, to be honest, it's not always perfect, right? There are people that, decide to move on or they come into the company, it's not a good fit for them, which means it's not a good fit for us. But we haven't really had that issue. It's really just having the conversation. There is an intuition. There is a little bit of a gut feeling in that process. What's cool about this is, right, humans are better than computers at this, right? This is one part where AI, and like when I say human in the loop, meaning putting humans in the AI machine learning process, this would be a human in the loop scenario and just a hiring process where it's not just about, hey, send me a bunch of resumes of someone with 4 years experience in rights management and a headhunter, they, send us some resumes. There are some outliers. In fact, our head of technology who built Blue Matter did not come from the music industry. And now that has become a major bonus for us. And people just see the value. He came from genomics. He was working on things way more complicated than music industry. He just had a passion for music and was looking for something interesting. So that's an example where we looked outside of our industry. And again, there is a bit of a human and a talent issue with, I've been hiring people for 20 something years. So I hope to think I get better at it as I go on. I've definitely made a lot of mistakes for sure.
Now, Paul's just been talking about hiring for culture fit. One of the things that I want you to really recognize here is this is a really important piece to you creating the kind of company that has an amazing team. And then you want to make sure that you have your values really understood, aligned with who you're hiring. You want to make sure there's questions that align to that hiring process. And you want to make sure that you understand why you're bringing on certain people and saying no to others. You actually want to repel people that you think are just not quite the right fit. You want to make sure you have all of these processes in place so that you and the team together are hiring the right people. You want to make sure hiring on culture fit is primary to the skill fit. Now back to Paul. Well, let's dive into that. What are some of the mistakes that we could learn from?
In general, look, some of the mistakes, like can I talk about like company culture? That's one of the big things I talk about, because before Muserk, I had another company, a 20-year-old company that I started from my apartment in my early 20s, which grew to be one of the largest music production companies, doing music for all the big TV stations. That's what got me into music rights. I was missing all my royalties on television. And one of the conscious decisions I made when I was going into this startup as an, I guess, not an older founder, but a more experienced founder, was I came from a company in that old traditional company culture. At the time I started Muserk, the words of like millennial was being thrown around, and it was used actually as a very negative connotation. Like, oh, these millennials, they can't do that. They all want to like take the day off to feed their cat, all these generic things. But I knew that working in the future in the type of business that I would have to open up my mind and not make the same mistakes I made in my older business of being more a traditional business, for example, where employees don't really know what's going on. Your management meetings are all about performance. Sometimes you don't let them into even the struggles you're having as a company, not, or what you're trying to achieve. And you end up having a lot of turnover, and companies always had that. It was par for the course. So one of the mistakes I personally made and was very open in the future is creating this kind of a good company culture, which is a generic thing and very hard to put your finger on what is the right company culture. But a good company culture is when employees, no matter where they are on the ecosystem of your company or on the ladder, feel like they're part of something bigger than just their paycheck. Now, however you can answer that question in your company, that's the key. And we're always, sometimes we make mistakes with this, sometimes, but we always try to learn from it and try to improve on that. And that's a core part of the business.
And we talked to a lot of Inc. level founders, CEOs here on the podcast, hundreds even, and we asked them an impossible question. I'm kind of curious where you would come in on this. I don't ask it as much, but it is impossible. But as a fast growth leader, what's more important, your customers or your employees?
Oh, it's definitely my employees. Like, that's not even the employees lead to everything. With good employees, you build a great company with great customer and with great product. Customers are a result of a great company, which includes people, and a great product. A company with a bad, toxic company culture does not come up with great products. They don't deal with their customers well. So for me, it's the that's the spark that leads to the flame, that leads to the fire, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because you proved my thesis right.
It's not that I don't think highly of my customers.
Absolutely. That's one reason why it's impossible, right? But there is a logical flow to it. When you as a leader take care of employees, typically they're going to take care of customers. They're going to take care of profits. They're going to take care of whatever else is inside there. But I appreciate you sharing that. You have talked about this one concept I think a lot of people just don't understand. I think they get it in a concept way, but they don't know how to do it. How do you make people feel like they're a part of something bigger than just a paycheck?
So this is interesting because, as I mentioned in the earlier question, when I started Muserk, I made a conscious effort. I need to change myself as a leader, and I wanted to, but, knee-jerk reaction. So some of the things that I'm sorry, can you just repeat the question?
You had mentioned about creating a place where people feel connected to something bigger than just a paycheck. So how do you do that?
Right. So again, creating a general place they like to work is the basic thing, right? How they feel more a part of the company. One of the things you could do as a leader is you have to let them into some things, but there's a fine line there. Okay. You have to let them know, like, they have to be invested in the company, not just from like how much time I spend there from 9 to 5, but they really have to be invested emotionally in the company. Hopefully they picked working for you as a startup because they like startup lifestyle. If they wanted a corporate job, they would go to Google or something easier. So they enjoy this type of environment. But I think as a leader, you have to let them in. Now, the fine line to that is like, how much do you let them in? Because quite frankly, just like with kids, you don't want to expose them to everything because it's not that they can't handle it, but it's not fair to make them handle certain things, right? So I think employees are the same way. We definitely have a company where I think the team knows a lot about even what I'm dealing with as a CEO, even the ups and downs of the company, even some of the struggles. But I also don't want to overload them because they have their own responsibilities, right? So it is my job as a leader to take that pressure off. They don't need to be on the roller coaster ride that a CEO knows about, whether it's fundraising or dealing with internal customer things or things like that. But I think they need to, and I hope I make them feel that all our successes are their successes. They each had a hand in it. Of course, giving credit where credit is due is a huge part of it, where I think is so simple, and a lot of leaders blow that off. And they think, well, just mentioning someone in a meeting is not a big deal. It is a big deal. Just saying like, hey, great job on that. People think it's so effective. It's unbelievable, actually. It's so easy and so effective. It's unbelievable. So those are some things we try to do. And just to be fair, sometimes I feel I've opened up too much to them, going back on the other points. So it's not just about, there is a gauge to it. There's plenty of blogs written about it. And how much pressure do you put on your employees? Should you let them feel the roller coaster? Do they have the stomach to handle it? They're not the CEO. They didn't choose that job. Or do they have the stomach made of iron to deal with the ups and downs? But in general, I think that's the way you do it. If they feel they're part of something, but genuinely feel it. And by the way, that's not like giving them gifts or even throwing events for them. That is really just an earnest. They feel like you're being honest with them. And when they go home at the end of the day and talk to their families and, hey, do I still want to work at Muserk? What do I want to do after this? No, I really love this job, even though I can get a better job that makes me more money. I mean, I think those are things they pull from when they make those core decisions.
Now, Paul's been talking about the ups and downs of companies and how important it is to share across the organization. Well, I call this the transparency line. The transparency line really is about how transparent are you willing to be? There are some things that you believe that you should say or shouldn't say. The transparency line, though, to me, is very important to help people feel a sense of ownership. You want to make sure most people feel like you're being transparent with them. You're sharing with them the good and the bad, not just the things that are going well, but some of the things that you're struggling with. Now, you may not share absolutely everything, but I will tell you that when you share the bad stuff going on, the down stuff, that people are willing to rally together. And I've had this conversation many, many times before on this podcast. I share this one insight. That transparency line is really important. In my speeches that I share out with the world as a paid speaker, I talk about really creating a transparent culture that's remarkable. Are people willing to remark about how transparent you are and how open you are? And that really is beyond financial transparency. It involves the conversations you have and the feedback you're able to give each other up the ladder and down the ladder as far as leadership and authority is concerned. Now, back to the interview with Paul. You mentioned this part about recognition, and I just want to put a spotlight on it because I always tell my clients, this is the one thing you can do that's absolutely free.
Yeah.
And takes very little effort. It really is just looking for things to appreciate out of people, doing it either privately, because some people like private recognition. Publicly, for me, when I was an employee, love to be able to recognize with my peers, has so many factors that go into it. Did you learn this through somewhere, or did you just kind of pick it up as you went?
Well, look, I'm still learning. To be honest, even having this conversation in my mind, I'm thinking, maybe I need to give some recognition this week to some people. Even this conversation is because it's one of those things like going to the gym or something. You constantly have to remind yourself, and if you stop, you'll just slide back. So this is an ongoing thing. But yeah, I think you're right. Like that core recognition is a big part of it. It's easy to do. I think it's easy to do for some people. It's not easy for others, but people like to be heard. We do one-on-ones at the company, and sometimes it's just where I do a one-on-one 30-minute. It's not a big review. We do company calls. We do management meetings and group calls, but the one-on-one is not always like, hey, let's get on the line and let's talk about your duties and what I think you've done great and I got a good report. Sometimes we just chit chat for that week because we don't have that much to catch up on. And sometimes it's just personal stuff.
Yeah.
But that's kind of part of the connection. They know about things I'm dealing with. They may say, oh, I took my kid to school and I had this problem. It's like, dude, I just took my kid to school this morning and like, we were so late. She wouldn't put on her winter jacket. Like, oh my God, I know the same. Look, you're laughing too. I mean, it's okay. Yeah. These are the types of things that create these bonds. And then it also creates a trust, right? I hope to think they trust me and I'm doing my best. I think they know that whatever happens, I'm trying just as hard as they are.
I am kind of curious. You said you're always evolving as a leader. What is the one thing that you're looking to improve or evolve as the company continues to grow?
In myself or the team or
you?
Well, look, I'm always trying to improve this topic because for 20 years I was ingrained in this kind of other type of company where the management team never told the employees what was going on. It's almost like we wanted to keep things secret because we didn't want them to know if things were kind of tight, or we didn't, if we were making too much money, we didn't want them to think that we're making too much money. There's all this thing. So I think I'm always trying to learn this. I'm not saying it's easy. Sometimes in my generation, someone gives me a reason why they can't beat a meeting. And my initial reaction is like, I'm not sure that's a good reason to blow up the meeting. But you know what? I sit and I think about it for a second. I say, wait a second, don't give that knee-jerk reaction. Don't be that typical CEO like, it's my meeting. That's not as important. You're getting paid for this time frame. I just let it go. And what I found out over time is by letting those things go, they really don't matter. They're 10 times more happier. And I didn't really care. I just didn't notice that until I let it go. That it really had no effect. In fact, I feel better about it. I'm nicer. I'm a nicer CEO, which I would always strive to be as a person, giving people leeway, that just being, so I think those are things, I don't think they're that easy. I think it's very ingrained in most humans to kind of control, to say like, this is my time, things like that. But again, there is a fine line to this, right? I mean, everybody, I think there's some gray area here. Not every CEO is going to show up in like flip-flops and sandals. I'm not that type of CEO, but some are. You read all these different variations. So you have to see what works. And some of my, I think, team members aren't like that either. So you also have to look at what they're like as people. In fact, even with the pandemic here, the office is closed again because we were in that company, the main company is in Nashville. I'm in New York City. But when the second pandemic hit there pretty hard, we said, just don't even come in the office. It's not worth it. But some of them kind of do want to come in. They just want to get out of the house. They want to sit in front of their computer, and I get it. So, there is some different personalities within the team. It's not a one size fits all, but the respect thing is one size fits all.
We've had a great conversation here talking about what does it take to create an amazing team. I appreciate you sharing your perspective and your wisdom as a leader.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the time. And this was a nice conversation. I love the topic. I think it should be talked about more.
Well, I'm going to reflect here a little bit for the audience, just to let them know what I'm taking away from this. I've heard many times before that you've got to create an amazing team by hiring right. You can't have bad employees from the beginning and try to coach them all up to that next level. You want to make sure that you have the right procedures and you understand what you're really looking for. Paul shared with us some of the things that were important to him in the company. You also want to make sure that you have that culture fit and what is culture fit for you, because toxic people can really kill any kind of vibe inside of a company, whether it be the momentum that you're building or just morale. It can kill all of that. You want to make sure you're putting employees first. You're recognizing them. It's absolutely free, something that a lot of people just don't take time enough to do. And if I had to urge you, it's like find one person a day in that next meeting that you could recognize, and then do that. Just do it today without even thinking too much about it. And then finally, what level of transparency are you willing to bring? And we believe here through all these podcast interviews that transparency is a really important piece. Every one of us has a different place where we draw the transparency line, what we think we should share and we shouldn't share. You want to make sure yours is fairly remarkable, because that's what makes people feel bought in and they feel a sense of empowerment when you are sharing the good and the bad. So all of this wraps up into just some of the key principles of leadership from Paul's perspective, but also, probably gives you an idea of where you might be lacking. My job as an executive coach is to help you understand what are those blind spots, what are the things you don't even realize that are standing in the way of the growth of your company, the growth of you as a leader, and the team pulling together and taking a sense of ownership. If you want to have that conversation, just reach out to me at genehammett.com and schedule your call. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.